Welcome back, guys, or if you're new here, this is Automotive Anonymous, and if you haven't watched my channel before, you should know that I've owned an Outback Wilderness for over 2 years, and I previously owned a supercharged 4-liter FJ Cruiser and a couple Toyota Tacomas, in addition to driving a lot of models like these I have for you today. There's a lot of objective facts and subjective thoughts that I want to share with you guys regarding which of these two off-road capable 4-wheel powered SUVs might be right for you. I will also have my full review of the Toyota 4Runner on my channel soon, but there's that and about a half dozen other videos. If anyone is interested in signing up for my membership program, you can get early access to all that stuff. Otherwise, let's dive right into this side-by-side comparison review. A brief summary of what each of these vehicles are known for are that modern Subarus are well known for being a top safety pick or top safety pick plus, having super bright LEDs, fairly economical, fairly reliable, and overall quite capable vehicles, especially for being a unibody design. Also, Subaru's all drive system is far superior in its mechanical nature to a lot of the other economical crossover vehicle options, even those by the other Japanese manufacturers, which is why this is even comparable to something like the Toyota 4Runner. Whereas the big, bold, beautiful 4Runner, which has ancient technology such as a low horsepower, big and loud 4-liter V6 and a 20-year-old 5-speed transmission from the previous generation, honestly, it doesn't care or show its age until you're driving it. But don't let that stop you from considering this as an extremely desirable body-on-frame capable SUV that, when optioned with a rear locker and maybe even the TRD off-road or Pro models, these are extremely capable off-road, and they can take it a little bit further than what Subarus are known for. So why am I even comparing these two vehicles today? Well, because they're both really cool. They're both way more capable and practical than the average family vehicle, and they both have a cult-like following classifying them as an enthusiast vehicle. And honestly, because I own an Outback Wilderness and having previously owned Toyota trucks for quite a few years, I miss them. And this video is also for me, so trying not to be too selfish, but hey, I am curious to see how they compare as well. But when you're comparing each of these Japanese designed SUV all-wheel drive vehicles, you really can't go wrong either way. But the ownership experience from day-to-day livability between the two will be drastically different depending on which one you choose, which is also why I did the 4Runner review before making this video, so that I have a little bit more recent knowledge to grasp from, in addition to the couple hundred other vehicles I've driven on my channel to share my thoughts and opinions based off of. So starting to get objective with the Outback, a base model starts at $29,000. There's 9 trim levels, and the Wilderness is number 7 out of the 9. So it starts at a little bit over $40,000 before any destination and goodie charges that you may want. Subaru sells about 140 up to about 180,000 Outbacks every single year in the United States, and this is currently the 5th year of the 6th generation, because this generation started in 2020, and then the Outback Wilderness model, or that trim level, came out in 2022. This is a 5-star crash test rated vehicle. It's even a top safety pick plus, and it has a bunch of active and passive safety features. Whereas the 4Runner starts at about $40,000. This one is the TRD Sport, which is the second of the 7 trim levels. So it starts a little bit closer to $43,000 before destination and goodies. But if you want to load out a TRD Pro, that's going to start at about $55,000. And then this one has literally been on sale for about 15 years of the 5th generation that started in 2010. And conveniently enough, Toyota also sells about 110 to 140,000 of these every single year in the United States. So very similar sales numbers, maybe just tailing by a few to the Subaru Outback. But this Japanese designed SUV is also assembled in Japan and then shipped over to the United States, which demonstrates why it is built so well, why it has such hard sounding closed doors, and why it's just a fantastic option. However, it is only a 4-star crash test rated vehicle with fewer active and passive safety features. So you can already start to see the trade-offs between these two Japanese SUVs. Neither of these are overly economical, but the Outback Wilderness is rated for 21 city, 26 highway MPG. It has an 18.5 gallon tank, so it can go about 480 miles between fill-ups with its 2.4-liter boxer engine that makes 260 horse at 5,600 RPM and 277 foot-pound-feet of twisty torque at 2,000 RPM. but it has a CVT, which is smooth, which provides comfort, but not a lot of people prefer a CVT over a regular standard automatic. And 0 to 60 often comes in the low to mid 6s, depending on density altitude in these outback wildernesses. So they are pretty quick for a family wagon. Whereas the 4Runner gets about 19 highway, 16 city with a 23-gallon tank. Its max road tripping range is about 437 miles. So it really isn't that much less as a total range compared to the Outback, but you're gonna be paying for about 5 more gallons to do the same range. And then it has a bulletproof V6 4-liter with a 5-speed automatic transmission, which this is probably the last vehicle in America to have a sub 6-speed transmission. It has a real 4-wheel drive system with a transfer case, so it is a stronger system. This, with its solid rear axle and independent front suspension, it can articulate. It can go places that the Outback just obviously cannot with its independent rear and front suspension and its all-wheel drive system. So there are trade-offs to both of these. A good all-wheel drive system, in my opinion though, is way more pleasant and easy to live with in regular driving, not having to worry about when to shift in or out with the transfer case. And then it might not be as solid of a system. It might not be able to take as much abuse off-roading and in a position of articulation with all 4 wheels where not all of them are touching the ground, especially with the rear locker. The 4Runner definitely wins in that department for crazy off-roading, but the Outback wins on the on-road department. And it's just easier to live with. You're not having to worry about going in and out of gear all the time. The Outback is noticeably smaller than the 4Runner, both on the exterior and the interior. But so you know, the objective specs of it are, it weighs about 3,900 pounds. The Wilderness can tow about 3,500 pounds. The payload capacity is around 900 pounds, but the roof rails are rated for 700 pounds. It comes with a standard Yokohama Geolandar all-terrain tire. That's a 225 65 17, so obviously the wheel is the 17. It has 9.5 inches of ground clearance, a 444 final drive ratio, and then it's roughly 16 feet long, 6 feet wide, 5.5 feet tall with a 9-foot wheelbase. So it is pretty stable, pretty planted on the road. But another area where the Outback falls short is its approach angle is only 20 degrees. The departure angle is about 23, and its turning diameter is actually winning at 36 feet. Whereas the Toyota 4Runner, depending on the transfer case, if you have one or not, this weighs about 44 to 4,800 pounds. Max payload capacity on this one specifically actually loses to the Outback. It's only 880 pounds, but it wins in towing at up to 5,000 pounds. And then bone stock, it has about a 225, I think it was a 55/20 tire, but these currently, where this one has a little bit of a lift, a little bit of an aftermarket setup, it actually has a 285 70 17. And then typically these come bone stock with all-wheel drive with 9.6 inches of ground clearance. The way this one is spec'd though, it's probably gonna be at least another inch and a half more. And then these commonly seem to have 373 or 391 gears in the rear. And then it's about the same size in some categories as the Outback at about 15.8 feet long. But it is just over 6 feet wide, and bone stock would be just under 6 feet tall. The wheelbase is nearly identical at 9 feet. And then it has an impressive 33-degree approach angle, a 26-degree departure angle, and it takes an extra couple feet to do a full circle at 37.5. The LED headlights are impressive on both and look fantastic just in the silhouette of the front end on each of these, but it does look like the low beams and the fog lights are brighter on the Subaru than the Toyota. And now guys, really pay attention to the interior of these vehicles, because that's where you're going to be spending most of your time if you buy either of these. This one as spec'd is around $44,000. This brand new, without options, without destination even, is about 43. So this, without any options, is more expensive than the Outback. So keep that in mind as you look inside and see what creature comforts you're actually going to get. Power liftgate on the Outback. It has about 33 cubic feet of room behind the second row. When you drop the seats, you get up to about 75. So not quite as much as the 4Runner, but the seats lay nearly flat. This has a full-size spare tucked away under here with all of your tools, your eye bolt, your scissor jack, all of those sort of things. And then you also have a secret way to get into it with the pin code, which I have a video on how to set that, as well as just a bunch of other Subaru secrets. Whereas the 4Runner, which has the awesome up and down scrolly rear view mirror, does not have a power lift gate. Thankfully, the shocks do a pretty good job to lift it, and it is quite a bit larger back here. This is about 46 cubic feet. When you drop the seats forward, you have up to about 89, so it is noticeably larger in all dimensions, but there's not an easy handle, not an easy way to drop it. As you'll see, it's kind of a two-step process to lower the seats. And then it's not too high, it's not too difficult to throw back down, but just keep in mind you will have to do that manually. And now getting inside the Outback Wilderness, the door panel looks really nice. It's all soft touch materials, nice big armrest, Harman Kardon speakers, so this does have upgraded speakers for that price. Rubberized mats, they look really good, kind of the Subaru Wilderness theme. Rubberized pedals, hood release, fuse box options, lighting stock, trip reset, things like that. 10-way powered heated StarTech seats, so they're basically waterproof. They're not true leather, but you do have a sunroof up top. It just happens to be closed right now. And then sitting inside here, it fires right up. The needles dance. It has a basic heads-up display that just alerts you of some of the adaptive features. But it's comfortable, it's easy to find a nice position. My biggest knock in here is I don't like this big screen. I wish I had physical buttons and controls like the Toyota. This one does work faster than my unit. It does have auto start stop. That's kind of annoying in my opinion, so I turn it off all the time. But if the screen freezes, if it's slow for a few seconds on startup, you can't change the ventilation, you can't change what's blowing. Thankfully though, you can get the My Subaru app, and you have remote start on this. You can change the heat settings and all that on your own, check tire pressure remotely. So there are trade-offs to having the electronics in here, but it has a whole host of safety features, as I'll overlay on the screen here. And it's just a really nice, comfortable place to be. The backpack's having a good time. Oh yeah, and you have auto dimming mirrors, garage door settings, sunglass holder, sunroof of course, blind spot monitoring on the mirrors, turn signals, a whole host of features. But let's turn it off and let's hop in the back. And in the back seats, the door panel looks basically identical, really nice materials, easy to lift and lower. The seats aren't too heavy. StarTech's theme follows. They can recline, so that's kind of cool, so bigger passengers can easily fit back here. And then sitting behind myself at 5'11", without the seats reclined, I still have quite a bit of room in front of my knees. Probably 2 inches above my spiky hair with how the ceiling is cut out with that. Double mat pockets, pamphlets, heated seats, ventilation, and plug-ins. Keep that in mind when we look in the back of the 4Runner. And then armrests, but I don't like that it's rotated the way it is. You can't fit your arm comfortably and a cup unless you go, you know, some supination and have your thumb up. But let's hop out and hop into the 4Runner. And before we do, I gotta say, side by side, I love the look of the 4Runner in this army green color with the TRD wheels. This is a good looking truck. But when we hop inside, this one is lightly used, slightly modified. Everything looks like it's held up really well. It slams hard, it sounds solid. This feels like a really well-built truck. Full-size snack pocket, bottles, unnamed speakers, nothing really on the door sill. It also has its own set of rubberized 4Runner listed mats, rubberized pedals, hood release, the options you get on this one, lighting stock, and then power seats. But they're not heated, and honestly, they're not very comfortable, but they are more of a material that's gonna last forever, but they do not feel as good as the Subaru seats, in my opinion, on my body type. Push button start. Fires right up. The big 4-liter comes to life. You have your controls up here. It's easy to find, a nice position, but you'll notice, look how short the windshield is. Side mirrors are, or the side windows are a little bit shorter too. Visibility just is not as good as the Outback, but thankfully you do have nice big side mirrors. Being under 16 feet long, the camera goes right through the rear. And you have manual dials for your HVAC controls, some plugins down there. That's just some more USBs, some storage. Sorry it's really dark in here with the dark tint that this one has. And then there is your transfer case control. So whenever you start to lose control, you are gonna have to put it into 4 high so that you're not just spinning out. With the rear wheels pushing you forward, it feels like you can easily lose control. And then you have some cup holders, some storage, your rear view window. And then a nice big center console with a 12 volt. So that is pretty cool. Up top you have auto dimming mirrors, you have sunglass holder, garage door opening, all of your off-road features, traction off. This does not have the rear locker because it's not the TRD off-road or the Pro. You have an extension on this one, whereas the whole visor slides on the Outback, and then you just have an incandescent light up top right there. So nice place to be. But you know what, guys, let's hop in the back and see what else it has to offer. All right, the rear door panel follows the same theme. Everything looks identical, and it has aged really well for the little bit of wear and tear it's had. And then here are your seats. Not really any side bolstering or lateral bolstering to keep you from sliding. It's a pretty flat seat. And when you want to lower the backrest, you actually have to pull the seat up, and then you have to drop this, and you have to bring down the headrest. So that's about as flat as it gets. There is a couple inches of lift compared to the lower tray portion. So I don't necessarily like that as much as the Outback. I guess this is kind of cool if you have some groceries and you don't want them to slide all around. There is that lateral support, but that's what it is. And then with the headrest up, no B pillar handle. There's just the regular one up here. But it is elevated pretty good, but a 5'11" without the seats reclined forward, or reclined back I should say, because it does have a recline feature right there. I do have a little bit more room in front of my knees than I think I had in the Outback. I only have a basic mesh pocket, mat pocket, old school dusty looking vents, some plugins, and a slightly better center armrest where I can fit my hand more easily in the middle. It is a little bit lower though, so I'm not sure which one would be more comfortable in that sense, but can't complain too much. There's quite a bit of room back here, but it is a rather dark interior without having the sunroof on this 4Runner. Overall, guys, these are both fantastic vehicles. They're both Japanese built, so you know that they're built well. I think they're built to better standards than often American vehicles are these days. But even though they could be similarly priced for a loaded out Outback Wilderness to something like a base TRD Sport 4Runner, there's a lot of differences to them. On paper, it's interesting because some categories, they are basically identical, and then there's other categories where one drastically wins or leads over the other one. The Outback in real world testing probably gets 5 to 10 miles per gallon better than any 4Runner on average. Bone stock, they have about the same ground clearance. This can do 0 to 60 in the low to mid 6s, whereas I'll overlay right here what I just got out of the 4Runner in the 9s. So it's not as fast, it's not as efficient. But if you're really going to do truck stuff, if you're going to do more than just going to a trailhead or a light off-road trail, you might need the 4Runner. But if you are just going on basic off-roading where sometimes you might have one wheel lift off, the Outback can handle that. Don't go fast, you know the tire's limits, but these are pretty capable. There's a lot of videos of people off-roading these to pretty far extremes. And there's basically always going to be a Subaru that you find on off-road trails. So you don't need to jump into the body-on-frame ancient 4Runner just because of that. But if you have the funds, if you value what Toyota does with the 4Runner, if you don't want to see them change and you want to put your money where your mouth is and support something like this, then absolutely buy it. Heck, I used to have a lifted FJ Cruiser with the supercharger. I loved that, but I sold it because I didn't use it to its capacity. I was daily driving, going almost 1,000 miles at one point per week doing therapy between towns, and it was a killer on gas mileage. Subarus worked out better for me. That doesn't mean I won't go back to a Toyota if my schedule changes at some point, but these are both fantastic vehicles. Can't go wrong either way. You just need to test drive them, find out for yourself which one might be the best option for you. And as I mentioned, I'll have the video of the 4Runner, the individual review up soon, if not already, unless you remember, and you can see that already. And I have plenty, probably a couple dozen videos total of wilderness related stuff on my channel. So both of these are great. I'm not trying to knock either one. They just each have their own place. I do want to mention, this is silly, but riding in the Outback on road, way more comfortable. The all-wheel drive, even in slushy weather like this, or more snow and ice out in the country before everything started melting and raining, as it has been for kind of my one-take video today, the Outback is a lot more confidence inspiring. It feels better, not weighing an extra 1,000 pounds like the 4Runner. It brakes better, it maneuvers better, it handles better. Just this is the off-road king of Toyota right now. So that's my thoughts. If you guys are still listening, thank you for being here. Please like this video if it was beneficial to you in any way. Subscribe if you want to watch more. If you like this type of stuff, let me know so I know to make more of it. Otherwise, I wish you the best. Thank you for sticking around. Take care, guys.